morning to all my dear students, friends, brothers and sisters and my well-wishers. To introduce our newly designed course of Thulir I.A.S. Academy online course for the Civil Service Examination 24-25. This course is designed for those who are preparing for the Civil Service Examination 24 and 25, and this course is going to introduce the General Studies 1 of the Civil Service Preliminary Examination and also General Studies 2 or Civil Service Aptitude Test or CSAT of the Civil Service Examination, right? Here, this course is for 1 year. The cost of the course is rupees 8,000 per annum. There will be daily lectures and weekly tests in the evenings at your convenience. So those who are interested in enrolling yourself in these courses can contact me with my mobile number 9818157350. I repeat, 9818157350, or you can also contact Mr. Subhash 9600266761. I repeat, 9600266761. In today's lecture, I am going to unravel the simultaneous elections. What are they? What is the intention or the objective behind conducting the simultaneous elections proposed by the high-level committee and the Government of India? What are the pros and the cons of the simultaneous elections? What are the international practices and what is the way forward? These are the things that we are going to discuss in today's lecture. So, let me take the first part, that is simultaneous elections. In India, we have three-tier governments: union government, state governments and union territory governments, and also the local self-governments, right? Now, the elections are held for the Lok Sabha, State Legislative Assembly, and the local bodies, right? The local self-governments. They are conducted at different points in time in certain intervals, right? I set a context and then we will discuss about the need for the simultaneous elections for the above mentioned the bodies. Now, why do you want to have simultaneous election? Let me set a context before getting into the need for the simultaneous election. In the last year, 2023, in the month of September, under the leadership of the former President of India, Ramnath Kovind, a high-level committee was formed to find out the possibilities for conducting simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies, and also the local self-governments. This high-level committee sought the opinion of the Law Commission, the parties, political parties, and other such groups on conducting the simultaneous elections. Then you must ask one thing: what is the need for it? As you know, the first election after independence to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies were conducted simultaneously in the same year. That was conducted in the year 1952, right? In the year 1952, 1957, 1962, 1967. In these four elections, the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies went for the elections. That means the elections for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies were conducted simultaneously. But due to early dissolution of the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies, because they were dissolved before the maturity of their tenure, the elections were conducted in different points of time for Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, right? They were conducted differently in different periods for Lok Sabha and the state legislative assembly. As you know, so far in India, the election for the Lok Sabha was conducted irregularly because Lok Sabha was dissolved 7 times. The dissolution of the Lok Sabha had taken place 7 times. Similarly, the legislative assemblies had also been dissolved in various times in various legislatures of the states, right? Now, in this context, the Election Commission of India, ECI, proposed for the simultaneous conduct of the election for both Lok Sabha and the state legislative assembly, and also the Law Commission in the year 1999 proposed for the simultaneous election for both the bodies, namely Lok Sabha and the state legislatures. However, this mooted concept continued to be remained in the paper and not brought into effect. Why? So why should we conduct the simultaneous elections? Why do we want simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha, state legislature and the local bodies? Why do we want? They cite the people, the advocates who argue in favor of the simultaneous elections, give few reasons why they want simultaneous elections. That can be understood in 4 simple terms: cost, governance, administrative convenience, social cohesion. So cost first, governance second, administrative convenience third, and the social cohesion. These are the 4 grounds on which the advocates of the simultaneous elections present their arguments. Right? Let me explain it briefly one by one. Listen to me. 1. The frequent elections or conducting the election for the Lok Sabha at different point of time and the legislative assembly elections conducted in other points of time involve a huge amount of money. The expenses for the elections for the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies are huge. For instance, to hold an election to the Lok Sabha for one time, it costs around rupees 4,000 crore, right? And similarly, every time in India, 4 or 5 states every year, 4 or 5 states go for elections for their state legislative assemblies. So it involves lots of money being spent. So simultaneous elections can reduce the unnecessary expenses first. Second, frequent elections to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies remain to be seen as the hindrance to the policy making and governance. You can see, whenever there was an election in the country, the ruling dispensation cannot come up with the new policies, and also they cannot adhere to the governance well. Therefore, one must understand the fact that when the model code of conduct or when the election was announced, from the date of the announcement of the election, around 60 days, the government of India, that is central government or the state government concerned, cannot bring about any policy or cannot announce any welfare schemes or implement the same. So it is a hindrance to the policy making and governance. Number 3, it impacts the administrative efficiency at length, right? So district administration, state administration and central administration, the workforce of the same had been largely deployed in the frequent elections conducted to the state legislature and even to the central legislature, that is Lok Sabha. So not only that, the paramilitary force such as CRPF, CISF, BSF were being invoked to maintain law and order situations in the states and the country where the elections were being held. Therefore, it impacts largely the frequent elections conducted in different points of time, largely impacts the administrative efficiency of the state mechanism. Then lastly, the 4th point, that is frequent elections to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assembly leads to the polarization of the society based on certain undue categories such as language, religion, caste, ethnicity, so on and so forth. So polarizing tendency must be prevented, for which the simultaneous election is the only solution, right? Now come to the arguments against the simultaneous elections. So we have 6 arguments against the simultaneous elections, right? Though they have some merits, at the same time, the simultaneous elections must also be seen from the perspective of impediments to many things. It creates a challenge to many things. So let us discuss them one by one. First, national cause overshadowing the regional cause. That means when you conduct the election to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies of all the states, the national agenda would come to dominate the entire state legislative assemblies. That means the regional caste would not be given much importance. Second, it is against the federal characteristic of the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution defines the jurisdiction of the power of the states and the center. So, when the state has its own agenda of conducting election, when the state has its own agenda of development, when the government of India, that is union government, has different agenda, now state cannot be forced to surrender its will to the central government for the sake of conducting the so-called simultaneous elections. So this is against the federal characteristic of the Indian Constitution, right? Third, it would create a conflict between the national parties and the regional parties. India is a diverse country. It is a diverse country where regional parties have different agendas to establish, to sensitize its own people for mobilizing and for creating awareness among how the country or the state should be functioning and what should be their agenda forward. But when the national election and the state elections are conducted simultaneously, the inherent contradiction between the national agenda and national parties and the regional parties would not be avoided. It would create a conflict between them. So coming to the fourth one, it would affect the basic structure of the Constitution. So federal fabric of the Constitution is basic structure. Conducting election to the Lok Sabha and Lok Sabha and the State Legislative Assembly is the basic structure of the Constitution as it was laid down by Keshavananda Bharati case in 1973. So, when you want to amend these constitutional provisions, then it is going to ultimately affect the basic structure of the Constitution. Then the last one that you must remember, changing the existing practice of conducting elections in different points in time to the simultaneous election needs or requires the amendment of the Constitution, right? It would need half of the states agreeing to the principle of simultaneous election and the special majority in the two houses of the parliament should be procured, right? There should be a special majority in both the houses of the parliament, as well as more than half of the states must give their consent. So this is also going to be changing the basic articles like Article 83, Article 82, 83 and 173 and 4, 173 and 174 for accommodating the simultaneous elections. This is a huge and a humongous task. So it is not feasible enough. So what should be our alternative? What are the alternative solutions to the simultaneous elections? If simultaneous elections should be conducted, if simultaneous elections are supposed to be conducted, what should be done? There are three alternative solutions, three suggestions put forward. One, the national election, that is the election to the Lok Sabha, and one half of the state legislative assemblies and their elections should be clubbed. Half of the state's election and the election to the Lok Sabha should be conducted simultaneously, and after 2.5 years, rest of the half of the states and their elections should be conducted. In the manner of doing it so, one should curtail the half lifetime of the state legislature, right? So for that, one must go for the amending of the constitution and also representation of People's Act 1951, right? So the first point is clear that you can hold the simultaneous election given the fact that election to the Lok Sabha and the election to the half of the legislative assemblies of the states should be clubbed together and conducted, and the rest of the half of the states must be conducted with their elections later on after 2.5 years. So for that, one must amend the constitution as well as the representation of People's Act 1951. Second, every time the dissolution of the Lok Sabha and the state legislature used to take place as a result of no confidence motion. So, in order to avoid such uncertainty, the no confidence motion must be issued, must be brought about with the confidence motion. That means there should be alternative arrangement for the person who moves, person or the party which moves the no confidence motion with the confidence motion with the alternative proposal of constituting the government. That means whosoever comes forward to contest the majority of the existing government with the no confidence motion must bring about their proposal of forming the government. If that party forms the government, what would be its duration? Would be rest of the period. The remaining period should be governed, ruled by the party which moved the no confidence motion, and not 5 years. So the frequent dissolutions cannot be dissolutions can be avoided. So this is the second one. The third alternative solution one can find is to, create a possibility for, in case any MP, any MLA, removed or dissolved, due to death, resignation and disqualification, any MLA or MP loses his post, then the by-election would happen. So these by-elections should be clubbed together throughout the country, and it should be conducted once in a year. So the by-elections for those candidates whose resignation or whose disqualification or resignation should be conducted. The elections to the by-election should be conducted every year, once in every year, right? So this is how one can avoid the frequent elections and go for the simultaneous elections. So what is the international practice in democratic nations about the simultaneous elections? The authors used to quote 3 countries: 1 South Africa, 2 Sweden, and 3 Germany. So in these 3 countries, there are elections happening for both the National Assembly and the provincial assemblies once in fixed years. Right? For instance, in South Africa, for the National Assembly and the Provincial Assembly, election takes place at the interval of every 5 years, right? And there is no dissolution of the assembly. In the case of Sweden, prime minister of Sweden was elected by the state, the central legislature. Even in the case of Germany, chancellor was elected by the central legislature. But in the case of Germany, if somebody wants to remove the chancellor with the passing of no confidence motion, then he should come up with the alternative arrangement for forming the government. So no confidence motion should be moved with the confidence motion. So you must remember three things, right? You must remember three things. One, conducting the Lok Sabha election and state legislative assemblies election not together but dividing them into two parts, conducting them in two different points of time in 5 years. That is, first Lok Sabha and the half of the states election, and second, after 2.5 years, then rest of the states and their election should be conducted. Second, the no confidence motion should be moved with the confidence motion, with the alternative arrangement of moving, forming the government should be there. So that tradition should be brought about. Then third is very important. Any by-election arising from the death, resignation or disqualification of the member should be conducted once in every year. That means every year the by-election should be conducted in one single go, not frequently. So this is what is being suggested by the scholars. So guys, my medium is English. For the benefit of all the viewers, I put it in English. Please listen to them carefully, and if you have any doubts, please contact me, or you can write it on my comment section. I'm very happy to clarify your doubts, queries, and any kind of suggestions that you could put forward. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.